My wife files for divorce because her friends like to be with rich men, and she wants to try that life. But now that she is looking to get back, I tell her that with the kids, we don't need her about 7 months ago. Emma, my ex-wife of 42 years, and I, of 44 years, moved for her new job. She had been offered a senior management position in a company to which she had applied without my knowledge. The reason she did it was because she knew I would never agree to move. We had been together for 12 years, married for 10, and we have 8-year-old twins. Both families are here. And a few years ago, my father was diagnosed with leukemia. Since then, it has been very difficult for our family, because my father's health has not been good, and we always fear the moment when we may lose him naturally, as his only son. I want to be here for him, and also for my mother. Therefore, I did not want to move after my father's diagnosis. Father. I thought Emma would understand what I was going through, but instead she told me that I was being too sensitive, and that I couldn't keep turning down job opportunities out of state, and expect her to do the same. Just because my father was sick, before my father got sick, we had actually been planning to move because she wanted a change of pace. But after my father's diagnosis, I told her that it would no longer be possible for me. She tried to understand at first, but gradually over the last year or so she began to feel very restless, and we had been fighting quite a bit about this. She wanted to move because she felt stuck here, and I couldn't think about moving while my father was in such a condition, especially because it would also mean having to leave my mother to deal with everything alone. Even if I had had siblings, I couldn't have left because my conscience wouldn't have allowed me to. I tried to explain that to Emma, but she refused to see my point of view, and I felt like she was being selfish, while she felt like I was the selfish one. Then, earlier this year, one day she came home from work and told me that she had applied for a high-paying position at a company out of state, and that she got the job. That surprised me, and I wanted to be happy for her. But I just couldn't, because she hadn't told me anything about this application or this job. I was kind of in shock. So I just congratulated her and didn't say anything that day. I remember we had an argument because she didn't think I was happy enough for her. Even though it was a big deal, I must admit, it was a good job with a decent salary. However, it upset me that she hadn't even thought she needed to talk to me about it before applying. She told me that she didn't even think she would get the job. But now that she had it, she was thinking about moving and wanted me to go with her. She wanted to relocate our entire family. Knowing what my feelings were about this, so we ended up fighting about it, and it was one of our worst fights. It got so bad that she ended up going to stay with her parents for a couple of days, and we had no contact during those days. I actually thought she was going to file for divorce and end this. But then she came home, and we ended up deciding that we were going to try to work things out between us because we still had the kids, and we couldn't let them down at that point. I thought it could still work with her because I didn't want to leave this marriage. I was sure I loved her, and she told me she loved me too. So she wanted it to work, but she also didn't want to give up on her dreams. So after a lot of arguing, we decided that she would take the job and I would stay here. She told me that she would try to travel back and forth as often as she could so that we could make this work. We had no other choice that I opted for a long-distance marriage. For now, since neither of us was ready to give up on the other, it was hard for me to accept, but I had to. At least for a while, until we could decide what we wanted to do in the future. Then she left, and started coming home every other weekend, every other. Even then, she could only spend 2 days with us and fly back on Sunday afternoons since she had to be back for work on Mondays. It was exhausting for her, and I knew it. But there was nothing I could do since I had already agreed to this arrangement over time. I guess she started to resent me, and her attitude towards me got worse. We had promised each other that we were going to try to make this work. But every time I tried to call her during the week, she was always very mean to me, and we would end up arguing about something. It got to a point where it seemed like she didn't even want to talk to me instead of calling her on my own. I started to wait for her. He would call me first, and then we started talking less and less. Even when we talked, she was always really cold and weird, and I didn't know what to think about it. Finally, after being away for almost 4 months, she came home one weekend and brought divorce papers with her. At that point, things were really tense between us. She told me she couldn't take it anymore. When she came back that weekend, we hadn't talked for almost 7 days straight, because of the argument we had the last time we talked. I wanted to find a reason not to get divorced, but I couldn't think of anything. Because the last fight we had was when she really threw the idea of splitting up and ending the marriage forever. I should have seen it coming for months. Not only had we been fighting, but she had also been getting closer to a friend from high school. This friend, let's call her Melissa, was not a nice person, and was an even worse influence. Emma had always been good friends with Melissa, and that woman had even been a bridesmaid at our wedding. But I had never liked her, because she always gave off a weird vibe from what I knew about her. She was a total gold digger, and always went after rich married men so she wouldn't have to commit to them, but still get the benefits of being with a rich man. She even bragged about it, as if what she did wasn't obnoxious enough when I used to mention her behavior to Emma. She used to tell me it was her personal choice, and that we shouldn't judge her. That was pretty irritating. So I eventually stopped talking about Melissa and decided to ignore that friendship altogether. It eventually got easier because after Melissa moved away and Emma got busy with work and the kids, they kinda drifted apart anyways. I knew Melissa had also been living in the same state with her son for a couple of years, as she had moved after her second divorce, probably to look for new prey. Coincidentally, when Emma got a job in the same state, she got in touch with Melissa, who was the one who introduced her to the city and helped her move and all that. I was hoping that maybe Melissa had moderated after all these years, but she was still the same strange person. I was not comfortable with Emma being so close to Melissa once again, but she was the only friend Emma had there, so I couldn't even say anything about it. In the months that Emma had been there, she had told me that Melissa had been very supportive of her since she was alone, and that she had even introduced her to a couple of her own friends. This group of people that Melissa had introduced to Emma was quite weird, because from what I remember, it was a group of 3 or 4 women, who were all single mothers, who met through Facebook, and had some sort of support group on the platform. According to what Emma had told me, these women had been with men and had children with them, but due to various reasons their partners had abandoned them, and now they were raising their children alone. The only support they received was alimony. However, it wasn't as sad as it sounds, because most of the women that Melissa got along with were like, she had gone after very rich men, had affairs with them, got pregnant, and then when these men decided to keep their wives and families, these women managed to get paid a large amount of alimony. This supported their lifestyle. In reality, it wasn't just support for them, it was also a payment to keep their mouths shut, as I guess these men didn't want their affairs to reach their wives. It was very common for all of them to have some online business that no one really cared about, but they were self-employed and wanted people to believe they were doing it all on their own. In reality, they were running a scam and were proud to call themselves independent women who had all the freedom in the world to live by their own rules, while living of the money of men who had been shameful enough to fall for her traps. Emma thought it was funny, but I thought it was disgusting, and I didn't think it was a good idea for her to socialize with them. However, she kept defending her friends and telling me that she had met them personally and that they were all really nice women, since we were already fighting about so much. I didn't want to fight too well, so I didn't say anything. But then, in the last fight we had before she filed for divorce, she told me that she really admired Melissa's strength, because even without any help from any man, she was raising her 2 children brilliantly on her own. I dismissively ended the call and told her that anyone who made that much money from getting pregnant after an affair with rich men would probably be taking good care of the kids already, that they were not their children, but a lottery ticket to them that led to a huge fight between us. The frustration had been building for months, and that day that small disagreement was enough to trigger the anger of both of us. We started cursing at each other, telling each other exactly how much we had tried to make it work. But unfortunately, we failed. Even the children we were supposedly together for hardly saw us together, and when we were together, we were not happy. So, instead of letting them grow up in a toxic environment, we decided to get divorced. The divorce process was relatively simple, as there is no waiting period in our state, and we only had to divide our joint assets, which was pretty easy. I kept the house and the kids, as she did not want to take them at this time, and she said that for now we could continue with the arrangement of her coming back here every week to see them. We had been sharing the cost of raise them anyway, so we continued doing that. Once they were a little older, we would let them decide what they wanted to do. It wasn't convenient for either of us, but we didn't want to fight for custody, as we believed our children deserved both in their lives. As far as the house went, we had a verbal agreement that we would put it up for sale in a few years, and when it was sold, you would split the money. The divorce was finalized about a month ago, and I didn't think she would want to talk to me after that because even while we were in the process of divorce, we barely had anything to talk about outside of meetings with our lawyers. Now that everything had been set down, I was trying to cope, although in reality it seemed like nothing had changed since we were still following the same routine. Life was definitely going to be quite different for me. Now that I was no longer married to Emma, my children were also very confused about what was going on. So I had to explain to them that their mother and we were no longer together. Even though nothing had exactly changed last night, she decided to call me again so we could work things out between us and give the relationship another chance. Apparently, she had made a huge mistake and wanted to reverse the divorce. I could notice she had been crying and was pretty hysterical on the call. She started ranting about how she had unintentionally idealized the lifestyle that Melissa and her friends led. Because of that group, she hadn't mentioned it to me before because she knew how I felt about Melissa. But after the last fight we had, she had talked to her group of friends, and they told her to go for the divorce initially. She had been skeptical, but they convinced her, so she talked to a lawyer they had recommended to her. But it's been a month since then, and she's tried literally everything to move on, like dating apps, blind dates, and going out almost every night, but has only ended up having casual encounters. This has only made her feel pathetic, because at least with me, even when we were fighting, she knew she loved me and I loved her. Now she is really alone, and more than anything, she misses the kids too. Her friends told her this would pass, but she hasn't been able to get rid of the loneliness and guilt after the divorce. Plus, her company had been doing pretty good when she joined, but she has had several pay cuts since then. Apparently, they had exaggerated how much they were doing to get her into the company, and her current income doesn't match what she was initially offered. Not just her, everyone in the company has been through the same thing. They keep telling people that things will get better if they keep working hard, but she thinks it's just to retain employees. That's another reason she wants to get back with me. She said she really wanted me to consider reversing the decision to divorce us because she just misses her family and what her life used to be. But after she finished talking and explaining her situation to me, I felt furious at her because I couldn't believe that she had allowed her immoral friends to convince her to warn her about Melissa and had made it very clear that I didn't like the company she was keeping after she moved, but she never paid attention to me. And now they had turned out to be the reason she ended up making the decision she made. If it had been a mistake of hers, I could have been understanding. But the fact that she had decided to listen to people I hated really bothered me. The audacity of calling me and starting to cry about all these things as if everything had been so easy for me just made me furious. I ended up exploding at her and told her that now she had to manage on her own, because I was not going to help her. Despite everything, I tried to do everything possible to make this marriage work. I'm not just talking about the last months, yes. Not since my father got sick. I was fighting for our marriage relentlessly, and for a while she did too. But she had been incredibly selfish over the last years, and that's how we ended up here divorced. The least she could have done while she was away was try to understand my feelings and my situation. Instead, she let herself be led around by friends she knew I didn't like. I told her I wasn't a teenager anymore, and that a juvenile excuse like her friends influencing her to make bad decisions wasn't going to work with me. No, she was coming home drunk to her parents. This was a very different situation, and it had affected my life, and even the kids now. Just because she finds it uncomfortable, she wants to reverse the divorce. First, of course, that doesn't work. And secondly, even if it did work, I wouldn't do it. I was really upset by everything she had said to me right before that. I just couldn't help myself. So I told her if she felt really alone and guilty, then she should ask for help her friends. I'm sure if they were the ones who encouraged her to ask for the divorce, they would care enough about her to help her if she's not doing well financially, but also support her emotionally as well. I was really upset by the fact that she had basically confessed that she had been having casual encounters with random people for the past month after our divorce. Technically, she was single, so I could do whatever I wanted, but it made me feel really uncomfortable and depressed, because I felt like I had devalued what we shared for the past 12 years. So I told her that I didn't want her back in my life, especially after the things she had just told me, and that I was going to make sure the kids stayed with me because I wasn't sure if she was a good influence on them. She started crying harder and told me that she was willing to do whatever it took to make things right. But I told her that I had made a decision and that I had to live with her and that the kids and I didn't need her anymore. Then I hung up and blocked her when I woke up this morning. I had several messages from my ex-in-laws. They were telling me that I shouldn't have said the things I did because she was already really depressed, and that it wasn't nice of me to kick her when she was down. They said that it wasn't necessary because she was already regretting everything she had done, and it seemed like I was trying to punish her more by telling her that the kids and I didn't need her. I wouldn't have cared what my ex-in-laws said, but they have been very nice to me after the divorce, so I don't know. I'm the bad guy for telling my ex-wife that I don't want her back, and that the kids and I don't need her anymore. Update 1. Thank you so much for all the support you have shown me in the comments. I don't know how to express it, but it really means a lot to me to know how many people are on my side in this situation. It means even more to me that so many of you have identified with my story and reached out to tell me that things are going to get better. It is very kind of you, and I know things are going to get better. It has been 4 days since I posted and blocked Emma after our conversation, so she hasn't been able to get in touch with me this weekend. She is supposed to come see the kids and spend some time with them, so I don't know what is going to happen then. For the past few months since the divorce started, she would just pick up the kids from my house and go to her parents' house to spend the weekend with them, occasionally spending some time here with the 4 of us for some family activities. But mostly she tried to stay away from me, and I was okay with that because it just made things easier for me this weekend. However, it is uncertain. I am actually somewhat worried about having to see her, because her parents have been really upset with me, and they have told me that the things I said to them were so harsh that she has ended up crying every time they have called her since then. I have not responded to any of their messages, because I don't really know what to say to them. But I feel a little bad, because I know Emma is a very unemotional person, and I managed to touch her in a painful place, because she has been crying so much, even though she hasn't been exactly nice to me, and our circumstances haven't been the best. I still feel really sad for her, because we could have had a great life. I feel like she ruined it all herself. I did my best to make it work, but it's not like I could make the marriage work on my own without any help from her. I don't know what to say, to be honest. Update 2. Emma came yesterday to pick up the kids, and we ended up having a conversation about everything that had been said. It was evident from her appearance that she was having a very difficult time, and it was on her face, and I found it very hard to be cold to her. She asked me if I would be willing to talk to her, even just a little, and I ended up agreeing. Once the kids were in her room, we started talking to her. She told me that she was really sorry for everything, and not just referring to the recent months, but the last few years. It had taken her a long time to realize how selfish she had ultimately been, and even said that she didn't deserve to be with me. She explained that in the last weeks after the divorce, every time she went out on a date or met any man, all she could think about was how she wasn't sure if this was the life she wanted for herself. She felt guilty for having thrown it all away. She had idealized it, but it wasn't as great as she thought it would be when she realized this. It was too late, because she had already lost me while she was talking. She started crying again, and I tried to comfort her, but she told me that it would only make her feel worse, because it only made her realize the kind of person I was, and how badly she had treated me. It was kind of bittersweet to hear her say these things about me, because I would have really appreciated it when we were together, but now I'm not sure what to do with it. Anyway, after a while she told me that she had decided to quit her job and move back here to be closer to her family. She also wanted to spend more time with the kids because she had already missed so much time with them. It was not worth staying away for so little money and sacrificing so much. The only request she had for me was that I not file for custody. Total, as I had said, I could do it. I told her not to worry. I had said it in the heat of the moment, but I had no intention of actually doing it, because both she and I had always taken good care of our kids. I knew they missed their mother. So, spending more time with she would definitely do them good, and I would support him. After we finished talking, she apologized to me once again and told me that I was a good man. She also promised me that she would try to be a better mother and a better person, and thanked me for allowing her to talk to me after all that had happened, instead of just slamming the door in her face. That made me a little emotional, but I didn't say anything, and then she left with the kids, so that was it. I didn't expect things to turn out like this. I thought she was going to come and fight me, but this was nice and unexpected. She has apologized, and I'm not going to say that I forgive her and that it's all in the past, but at least we're on the right path now. I don't think I can go back to her. That seems unrealistic after all that has happened. But the least we can do is try to raise our children in the best way possible and make it as peaceful for them, and of course too, it will be better for us. Now let's see what the future holds. Update 3. Well, it's been 4 months since my divorce, and after my last update, Emma has kept her word within a few weeks. She quit her job and moved back here ever since our kids have been dividing their time between the two of them. They spend half the week at my house and the other half with their mother, and so far it's been quite convenient for them. Emma was initially with her parents but found an apartment a few blocks away. The kids are having a lot of fun with both of their homes now. As for my ex-in-laws, we are back on normal terms. We don't talk regularly, but they apologized for bothering me when Emma was going through her crisis. They told me it wasn't my fault, but since her parents were really stressed and ended up blaming me in a reflex action. Emma and I are also back on good terms. I wouldn't say we are friends, but we are cordial, and we have kept things on civil terms. I am also moving slowly, and trying to process everything that has happened so far is going well, and I am hopeful that it will continue to improve. Update 4. It has been almost 7 months since my divorce, and I wanted to share a significant update. A couple of months ago, I met someone and we have started dating. She is a single mother, and her children are similar ages to mine, which I think can be pretty good. It has been good to date someone again, and I feel good in this relationship. My children, for their part, I think will be incredibly understanding. They have often told me that it would be okay if I started dating someone I did not have to stay alone, so I have been thinking seriously about introducing them to my new girlfriend, as I think they will handle it well, and it will be a positive transition for everyone. They may even get along with my girlfriend's children. However, this update is not only about that, but also something that has happened with Emma a few years ago. A few days when Emma came to pick up the kids, she asked me to sit down. We sat in the living room while the kids were upstairs, finishing getting her things ready. To my surprise, Emma told me that it had been a long time since our divorce, and that now that we were getting along, she would like to go on a date to see how things were going. She explained to me that since she came back to town, she hadn't gone out with anyone, and she hasn't been in contact with Melissa or her other friends either. For her, it would be a chance to see how she feels, and if we could rekindle what we were doing. It was a little awkward, because of what I had told her at first, and I didn't know how to tell her, but I finally told her that I had already met someone, and that I was even thinking about introducing her to our kids. Although we are both in a better place and we get along well, I don't think it's a good idea to try a relationship again. Emma took it calmly and appreciated that I was honest with her, even though she knew that she was feeling a little hurt about all this. But what is it that even though she hadn't met someone yet, I maintain that giving the relationship a chance is a bad idea. Update 5. I wanted to give you a little update on how things are going first. Regarding my father, as many have been asking, he is still struggling with his health issues, but I am relieved to say that he is slowly getting better. It has been a long and complicated process, but he is a fighter, and his improvement has given us all a little hope in regards to my personal life. I recently introduced my children to my new girlfriend. I was a little nervous at first, but I'm very happy to say that they welcomed her quite well. They seem to get along with her, and that has been a great relief to me to know that my children are comfortable and happy with this new dynamic. Gives me a lot of peace of mind. Plus, I recently had the opportunity to meet my girlfriend's children. We decided to have a barbecue at my house so that everyone could spend some time together. It was a relaxed atmosphere, an incredible day. The children got along very well with each other, playing and laughing as if they had known each other forever. I am very happy with how things are progressing, both in my personal life and in my father's health. I am very grateful for the support and good wishes from everyone.